Hey guys, welcome to another recent viewing video, and today I'm going to be talking about San Andreas, the earthquake disaster epic summer blockbuster type movie that came out this last summer. I don't remember exactly when. I didn't actually pull any of that stuff up on Wikipedia, but that's fine because I don't really need to. I imagine most people know what movie I'm talking about. Stars The Rock, as a member of the Los Angeles Fire and Rescue Team, a helicopter pilot, and just rescue hero extraordinaire. And in this movie, he has to. It's funny because I want to try to make sure I remember to touch on this point, but he is a member of this rescue team, but you only see him rescue, essentially, officially rescue one person in this whole entire picture that's not a family member, basically. Anyway, here's the premise of the movie. He is a helicopter pilot, like I said, for the LA Fire and Rescue Team, and an earthquake happens. And his team goes in to rescue this lady whose SUV has fallen and is like hanging over a big crevice where the San Andreas Fault has popped open. And he and his team go in while being filmed by a news reporter and save this lady. Not obviously not smoothly, because in a movie you got to have the drama, so shit goes down a little bit, but they do it wonderful. And then you cut to Paul Giamatti, which I had read reviews of this movie on Vudu before I watched it. Who were a lot of them were like, it was a really nice touch for them to have Paul Giamatti to come in there and play this scientific role, researcher who believes he has developed a system in which to predict earthquakes. And he and a colleague of his decide to go where all this activity is happening after this one earthquake and test their theory. And it's at the Hoover Dam in Nevada. And earthquake happens, big one, and his colleague dies. But he has now proven, or he feels like he has now proven, that he can predict these earthquakes with some amount of what do you call it? Like preparedness, like a certain amount of preparedness time, sort of like what we feel like we have nowadays, a little bit better with tornadoes. So he's like, okay, this is going to be really, really bad. This is going to be a bad thing. He puts it together that there were faults in areas that they didn't realize were there, and because of what's happening, this is going to be the big San Andreas Fault earthquake that we've been fearing for years. And he starts trying to put out the call that and warn people from LA to San Francisco and all along the way. Now, The Rock, who just discovered that his estranged wife is moving in with her new man, and who also sent him the official divorce papers to sign, it was going to have like a weekend excursion with his daughter before she went to school and yada yada yada. Only this earthquake disaster scenario has pulled him away, and he has to go to work. He has to go rescue people. Well, while he's in the air flying there, earthquakes start to happen, and both his soon-to-be ex-wife and his daughter are in predicaments. So he goes to save his ex-wife in LA when it all starts to go down there, really bad earthquakes. Saves her in the helicopter. He has that moment where he's like, oh God, something bad is happening. Oh, I got a call from, I think he called or she called. They called before the earthquake happened, but then the earthquake hits, and he's got to go rescue her. So he goes and rescues her, gets a call from his daughter. She ended up going with her mom's boyfriend on essentially the same trip that she was supposed to take with her dad, only a little bit more business trip in an airplane instead of driving and camping. And she gets trapped in this car in a parking garage, and her mom's boyfriend goes Splitsville, just leaves her behind. It was really weird how that went. And I'll just talk about that really, really quick. Like, here he was, okay, from The Rock's perspective, he's a douchebag, I don't really like him. But from our perspective, we haven't been given anything to really be just like, oh, this guy's, I'm not going to like him. He seems nice and all that kind of stuff. And then the earthquake, she gets pinned in the car. He's trying to help her. Then another earthquake thing happens. He goes up to try to get some help for her and just about dies. And that was just enough to snap him into, like, I must wander like a zombie on the streets of San Francisco with all these other people instead of helping my girlfriend's daughter who's trapped. And you see him like 2 times after that. One time when a building falls in the street and he has to hide, and even throws somebody out into the road. And the movie tried to say that if a building fell and all that wind and debris that would fly up the street is so powerful it would actually knock somebody over or carry them away like the wind of a tornado, which I was like, I don't think that's how it works. Maybe I'm wrong. And then a little while later you see him crossing the Golden Gate Bridge, and a tsunami is blowing a big freighter ship into it, and one of the big containers on the ship falls and kills him. He like literally had 20 or 30 seconds more screen time after he leaves her behind in that parking garage, and he's dead. And it was just like that. I was like, wow, poor guy. The actor, I don't know his name, but he played one of the Fantastic Four, one of the characters from the first 2 Fantastic Four movies. Like the main guy, I would call him, but I don't know the name because I don't give a shit about Fantastic Four. Anyway, it was just so hilarious how they just kind of was like, well, we know The Rock doesn't like him. He's not necessarily a horrible guy that we've seen. Oh, well, he makes a very questionable choice, and as a father, if that was my daughter, I'd be very, very pissed off at him too. But the way the movie was like, it was just like, fuck you, dude, and you're just gone. In the meantime, The Rock and his estranged wife are in the helicopter, and they have to go from LA to San Francisco. Only it's not going to be that easy. The daughter is rescued by a guy that she met at her mom's boyfriend's office, who was getting ready to have an interview for a job there, and his younger brother. They are rescued by them, and they hit the streets of San Francisco trying to get to a place where they could first contact, her name was Blake in the movie, so that she could contact her parents, who were in the helicopter. And then all this stuff happens. I don't want to explain the entirety of the movie. I didn't want to go down that road. But like I said, a lot of shit goes down. But eventually, they get to San Francisco, and, as you know, in a movie like this, there's going to be, despite all the tense situations and the bizarre shit that goes on, they rescue her happily ever after, yada, yada, yada. The things that I really wanted to talk about in this movie was I had a heightened sense of extreme anxiety and paranoia while watching this. And I realized now, okay, I was thinking about older disaster movies, not talking about like 70s stuff, but like 90s and early 2000s. Anything from like Armageddon to Independence Day to Day After Tomorrow to 2012, a lot of other movies that were interspersed in that time. A good, I would say, 10, 12 years worth of disaster movies. Movies that either they were like widespread, almost worldwide destruction. That's why I don't consider maybe something like the Jurassic Park movies that I just watched. Even though they have lots of destruction and intense stuff that goes down, it's not like an entire city or state or even the planet. But your meteor-type movies, your earthquake movies, your weather-related phenomenon movies, and your alien invasion and attack movies fit this bill really, really well. I really miss the way that those movies were done back in the day when the CG was still young and new and fresh, and where I feel like, I don't know, maybe in the 90s it was okay for things to be a little hokey and a little corny and a little cheeseball. But now you feel like it's been enough time has passed. Why can't more of these movies do a little less of the really corny bullshit that they pull? Just the way that, like, at one of the things, when the estranged wife was in the building after she had called her husband, The Rock, and said that I'm here, and he's like, get to the top, I'm coming in the helicopter. She's sitting there on the top part of it, and you're like, okay, he's getting ready to get pretty close or something, and all of a sudden, the little patch of cement that she was on fell through. It gave way. And it fell. And it landed on the next floor. And then it fell. And then on the next floor. And I'm thinking to myself, is this thing piling up more layers as it falls down a little bit further? I mean, that's just like, that's not the way it ties in a little bit also with the main reason why I felt the anxiety and paranoia with this. Ever since 9/11, ever since all that happened, I spent a lot of time the day that the attacks happened watching the coverage on the news and seeing, footage of the planes crashing and the Twin Towers falling and the people jumping out of the building. And one of my biggest fears of all time is heights. And anything that has to do with heights, whether it's a skyscraper or being in an airplane or two things together, just freak me out. And it's the kind of thing where I should shut it off and not watch it, or else it'll do a mind job on me. I will be thinking about it for a long, long, long time. And that's what happened while I was watching this movie. The skyscrapers falling, being in parking garages, stuck in cars, the water when the tsunami hit, the water rushing into the building, all these things that were happening, and I was thinking to myself, there's no way I would survive any of that stuff. There's no way that I would make it on my own. There's no way in the world that if, I hate to say it, but like, when he was trying to rescue his daughter, I was thinking to myself, if that was me and my daughter, I couldn't keep it together long enough to save her. There's just no way. People say, oh, you wouldn't believe what happens when you're in those kind of situations and the adrenaline is running through you. I'm like, I know what it's like to have adrenaline running through me. It just makes everything that goes wrong in me go even more wrong. I just lose it. It's like the molecules inside of my body are literally going to disperse and I'm just going to fall into nothingness. I was some pretty deep shit for just watching a stupid, disaster flick, but that movie had me tense and on the edge of my seat in both the good and the not so good ways. Me worrying about being in those kind of situations, but also worrying for the characters on screen and will they make it? Will they get out? What more could possibly happen to them? Because this movie, it rolled a lot of bad things these people's way. But of course, in the end, the main people survive. But like I said, it was hilarious how The Rock only rescued really his wife and his daughter and the brothers who were along with Blake through San Francisco. He did pick up a lady who was hurt by a car and rush her to a place to be safe from disaster, and a whole bunch of people who were on the street who he directed to a spot. It was cool to see that. But I mean, it was just like happenstance, really. He just happened to be there. It wasn't like he originally set out in his job to go rescue people and save people. And in the end, he really only saved his family. And that's another thing, too. Another thing that came to my mind later on in the movie, and it's the same throughout almost all of these disaster flicks. So many times at the end of these movies, it's that main character or characters and their closest loved ones who survive. And it's like this big grandiose type thing. Oh, yes, they survived and they're going to rebuild, and so will the city, and so will the state of California and the world. But at the same time, all around you, everywhere, were people dying. You know, there may have been a lot of people evacuating and a lot of people saved, but the boats, the bridges that came down with cars on them of people who were trying to escape, all those buildings and the people on the streets, so many people died. But it was like the movie's just saying, hey, The Rock and his family survived. Ding! I don't know. I never really gave it much thought before, but now that I look back at all those movies, like Armageddon and whatnot, lots of people died in those movies, but in the end, it's super awesome that the few people who the movie was like revolved around, they made it out. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's a little cynical. I enjoyed this movie. At first, I thought it got off to a few rough beginning steps. The same way I felt about the movie Aloha. Like, the characters were presented to me in such a way that I was like, oh God, I don't think I'm going to like this. But in the end, I did enjoy this movie. It was good summer fluff, the big dumb blockbuster movies. I've talked about those before. They're always going to have a place. But it seems to me like, I guess in closing, one last point I wanted to make was that while it was good, while it was suspenseful, while I thought the cast did an ample job in their roles and all that, it felt like as a whole, it's been a while since a good, high-budget disaster movie that really grabbed a hold of me had hit the theaters, and it almost felt like the idea or the concept of the disaster movie itself was some sort of a being, some sort of an entity, and it had done its thing in the 90s and through into the 2000s, and not even that long ago, like 2012 I think was the last movie that I saw, and that came out a few years before 2012, but it only probably means like 5 or 6 years since a really big, something that wasn't some cheesy sci-fi movie or low-budget movie came along like this. And so it was like it was rusty. It was like the concept was rusty, and while they still know how to do the amazing special effects, the storyline, the beats, the character development, and making you care about characters that I used to feel that a little bit more with some of those older disaster movies. I didn't quite feel it as much with this one. But that could just be me. Everybody's mileage may vary as far as that goes. Anyway, San Andreas, it was decent. I will probably buy it. I will probably wait till it's on sale. If it's on sale on Black Friday sales, I'll pick it up then. If not, I'll just wait till it's a $15 Blu-ray. A lot of movies that I've wanted to buy from earlier in the year, like John Wick and Lucy and all them, are $15 Blu-rays at Walmart now. So I may give this one some time to shave a little expense off and then put it in my collection. It's worth having another look at someday. But anyway, that's my thoughts on San Andreas. Thank you for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time.